Hi all, and thanks for being with me today. I just need to remind you, if you've seen this post before 3 p.m. here in South Australia, then remember that today I'm doing a live feed with Avery Hilditch at 3 o'clock. It plans to be an interesting one, to say the least, as there's much happening in terms of some of the comments Avery has had in relation to his little take on religion. So join with us at 3 o'clock for that, and please remember to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do what you need to do to keep up with the latest, because today I'm going to talk about one of my favourite commentators and opinion pieces on Sky News, namely Rita Panahi, because today she has with her one of my also most famous people that I like to talk about, because I'm influenced by the dynamic views this particular individual has around all things Australian, given that he's a POM, namely Douglas Murray. So in this particular piece, Douglas is asked a question about something for which he knows nothing about, which is often the case with Douglas. But on this particular instance, he's talking about he was asked a question, as you'll see in a moment, in relation to Indigenous people getting priority at St Vincent's Hospital in Victoria. Now, the key element of this is that he knows nothing about this story, apart from the question that has been asked, but he has an authoritarian nature. He knows everything about everything, even when he is not in the country, and is part of that constituent we could call colonialisation. And his country is responsible for everything that's happened in relation to Indigenous people. So I think there's an irony about him talking about this particular issue here. So here he is talking about this with Rita. So sit back and relax, because it's kind of fun.
Joining me now is the author of international bestsellers, including his latest on democracies and death cults, Douglas Murray. We will get to the US and UK shortly, but let's start in Australia, where one of our leading hospitals here in Melbourne, St Vincent's Hospitals, has introduced discriminatory practice with Indigenous patients fast-tracked in the emergency department over other patients. Hospital staff ordered to treat Indigenous patients within 30 minutes of arrival. What do you make of that policy, Douglas?
Now, can we just say, before we hear the wisdom, which is Douglas Murray, is that in Victoria, and I said this in another post, the Indigenous population is 1%. So the actual number of Indigenous people that attend hospital would be rather limited, I would think, considering there's such a small percentage of the population. But also the other thing I think we need to keep in mind is that Indigenous people may present with a range of different type of issues, particularly diabetes, I guess, and other inflictions that impact Aboriginal people specifically. And why isn't it that we can't give them some sort of priority? Because I am sure, though, that there would be people that would come in with heart conditions that would always come to the top of the list, regardless of who else was in the ER at the time. So I think we need to keep that in mind. This is not black and white, but I think it's a reasonable policy to have in place for Indigenous people. I don't know what the reasons for it were from St Vincent's Hospital, but I'm sure that they have thought about this greatly, and they consider that they're providing a service for Indigenous people in particular that they don't get elsewhere. So hear more of what he has to say, which is rather, well, it's a revelation, because he knows nothing about the subject in the first place.
Where patients are seen not based purely on medical need.
It's extraordinary, Rita. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was surprising, but I'm afraid it isn't, is it? It's similar to practices that the so-called DEI and other movements have pushed.
All right, so immediately it has to be a woke issue. It can't be based on, let me think, discrimination against Indigenous people generally. No, it can't be about that. It can't be about the colonisation of these people by people like you, friggin' Douglas Murray, you piece of human excrement. So it must be for other reasons. And of course, if it's DEI, then it is woke. And therefore, according to clowns like Murray, it is wrong.
For years, which is that somehow to make up for past inequities or inequalities, you have to introduce new inequities and inequalities. And if any group is regarded as having been disadvantaged in the past, you must disadvantage another group in the present. It's worth just calling.
That is the most stupid argument I've ever heard. So, according to this clown, if you've been disadvantaged, you can't have someone make up for or to provide some sort of equity around that disadvantage. In fact, according to Murray, what happens is you wind up disadvantaging somebody else. So those people that have had all the advantages wind up being the ones who are disadvantaged. So if that's not victimhood, I don't know what is. But this man plays the victim card at every opportunity.
Calling it what it is, which is just flat out discrimination and bigotry.
So it's okay to discriminate against Indigenous people, but it's not okay to discriminate against, let me think, white, Caucasian people from I guess, Douglas Murray's background.
There's no other word for it. And in no other scenario would anyone tolerate this. I hope it's not tolerated in this case, but
he doesn't know, and it is tolerated, and it's a reasonable assessment given where Indigenous people sit in our community.
No other way round would this be allowed. Would such discrimination in favour of one group of people and against another be deemed to be somehow progressive? It's as bigoted a policy as you...
So the interesting thing about that to me is that it's been okay for a couple of centuries now to discriminate against Indigenous people. But for some particular reason, people like Douglas Murray think that a policy like this is discriminating against them. So this 1% of the population is discriminating against the white population, the ones that get services all the time, whenever they want it. But Indigenous people can't be seen as different, according to Murray, because basically, I guess what he's really saying is, I'm a racist.
You can get, and I hope it's very swiftly consigned to history as it should be.
I fear here in Melbourne, in Victoria, this is going to be a practice that's going to spread rather than be...
Oh, heaven forbid. Oh, let it not spread. Oh, that would be too terrible to give Indigenous people some sort of advantage over the white colonials. That would be terrible.
Consigned to history. We've got a state-based race treaty and voice to Parliament being put into place at the moment. So that we've got all sorts of problems, but so do New York.
But Rita, how long do the people who are pushing this policy honestly think that the rest of the population would put up with this? How long do they expect the rest of the population to just sit by in emergency wards and see other people prioritised because of their ethnic background? Just how long do they think the Australian public who aren't of so-called Indigenous heritage, how long do they think they're going to put up with this? Are the Australian public just a complete walkover?
God, he's a moron. I can't put it in any other terms. There's massive... So we're going to have, according to people like Murray, who know nothing about it, who've just been asked this question, but have got a wealth of knowledge and understanding and in-depth understanding of discrimination and Indigenous problems, Indigenous issues, and how they've been disadvantaged for centuries. He knows the answer. The reality is he's got no friggin' idea. He is a moron. But because he's written a few books, he seems to be important to Rita Panahi, and he is important to Sky News because they want to continue to push this stuff around discrimination. So in this particular instance, it appears to be discrimination against the other, who are non-Indigenous. It is wrong, and it should be dealt with accordingly. Let me know what you think in the subject, in the comment section below. I'd be interested to know what most of you have to think about this particular issue, and Douglas Murray, who I think is an abysmal, abhorrent individual. Let me know what you think. Just take care, everybody.